of the Northern Church chiming 7 o'clock. Um, yeah, it's 7 o'clock. And I mean, how's that for a typical Amsterdam background, huh? Okay, let's see who's here. Hello, Tish. Hello, Ruth. Oh, let me just zoom back to the start. Oh, you've been chatting. Great. Well, I'm not going to read the whole chat. Susan, Catherine. Hi. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Hey, Tish. And Trisha, welcome. Hi, Mark. Ginny. Lovely to see you, Ginny. Cool. Hi, Jackie. But let me get on with it. So we are, hi, Carly, in Amsterdam. Obviously, look at the wonderful Amsterdam buildings behind me. And I'm kind of almost where I ended the last one, but just across the canal, because I wanted to show you a few things around here. That's enough of me. There we go. So that's the Northern Church over there that we've seen a few times. And I realized that there's this tiny little bit of the Prince's Canal, which we're not going to see unless I do it today. And I wanted to show you this lovely building with this amazing Louis XV, not amazing, let me not overstate it, but this lovely little Louis XV flourish that's feather blowing in the wind up there. So that's really a nice little detail. And down here, a very, very, very nice florist shop. And there's a hat shop just a little further. But I noticed something really strange that I've never seen before with a houseboat. Hi, Hilary, and hi, Tariq. Welcome. Okay, we've seen many, many houseboats, yeah? And with the houseboats, I mean, they're attached to the quayside in various ways, with ropes normally. And I've never ever seen a houseboat connected like this before. Check it out. So there's a pole, a vertical pole here that is actually embedded in the canal floor, if you will. And then the houseboat has this thing around it so it can go up and down, if the water level fluctuates. Now, I have seen the system before. And those of you who were with me when I went and saw all the floating villages would have seen that before, but I've never seen it on a houseboat in Amsterdam, so that's a first for me. So yeah, here we are on the Prince's Canal, and we're opposite the really wonderfully green boat that I probably showed you from the quayside last time. Check out that for a green roof garden. Beautiful. Now, I forgot to look up. Jenny asks, can anyone live on the canals? Yes and no. You can't just bring a boat and tie it up somewhere. So what you need to do is you need to buy the boat and you need to buy the right to use that patch of quayside. And therein lies the snag. That's the expensive part. Like, the boat could be, 100,000 euros, but in a really good location, you could be looking at $1 million plus. Location. Love this shop. A hat shop. Because every now and again, one needs a hat. I remember a nice advertising logo for a hat. Oh, look at the nice reflection in the window. A nice... how do you say? A logo for a hat shop was like, get ahead, wear a hat. So there's everyone. There's me in the window. There's Amsterdam reflected in the window. There are hats. Die Hard, it says. No, it's best with the old habits, Die Hard. Anyway, that's a cool shop. So, see how quickly these cyclists come around this corner here, huh? Oops, and another one. I wasn't expecting that one. So here's the good old Brouwersgracht, the Brewers Canal, and this is the Prince's Canal behind me. Let me just show you a quick shot down the canal, trying to remember to move slowly. It's so lovely with all the trees and their full summer greenery. It really is brilliant. So there you go. And zooms the boat through, and it's Pride coming up, of course. So we have all the Pride flags. Oh, they're not. Let me show you this. They're all blowing in the wrong direction now. So these will be all along the canal. This is the canal where the Pride parade happens. It's a boat parade, and that happens on the first Saturday in August always. Yeah. So it's like a combo of the Pride flag and the Progress Pride flag. I like it. I like it. And on this famous corner, my favorite corner, Prinsengracht, Pope's Island. Oh, Jenny, I didn't realize that Brighton also had a later Pride, not in June. How cool. Nice to spread it out a little bit. Wow, look how cool that sky looks. Okay, now I wanted to show you the name of this bridge here. So have a look here. And you'll see it says Papiermolen Sluis. I'm going to be away in just a second. So I'm just disturbing to people who are chatting. But I wanted to show you the name of that bridge. Now, you might think, okay, if you speak Dutch, that means paper mill. So that is a windmill that made paper. And you would think, okay, well, that seems like fairly logical. It was obviously there must have been a paper mill here at some point or other. And the sluice part means a sluice. What?
Good to look.
Oh, right, okay, cool. Oh, sorry, there's just something happening on the side. Never mind. Okay, so Papiermolen Sluis means a windmill, like paper-making windmill sluice. So you would think, like maybe it means that this is where there was a windmill that was making paper. Well, that's not actually the case at all. Let's just unwind this a little bit. So, what is a sluice? A sluice is a sluice. Now, in English and in Dutch, a sluice can mean a gateway that regulates the water levels. So you'd have a gate, and then if the water built up on one side of it, my screen's gone very dark, then it would automatically open. But actually, any brick bridge is actually referred to as a sluice. But as it happens, there was actually a sluice here. The difference between a sluice and a lock, by the way, is that a lock has two gates and a chamber in the middle. Okay, so there was actually a sluice here, but the bridge would have been called a sluice anyway. So what about the paper mill part of it? Well, in a nearby building, there was somebody who traded in paper. So what he did is he hung a picture board outside of his shop which had a windmill on it called the paper mill. And that's where that came from. And I can see like everything is going to try and make me giggle today, because there was this thing a moment ago with a guy watering the plants above the bridge and then almost watering people in a boat going below. You saw that. And then there was somebody just walking behind me hiccuping. And the whole thing is, I can just see it's meant to like seriously amuse me today. People coming forward in their boat in a very determined manner. Okay, so that's why. There's nothing to do with there was no windmill here, but anyway, that's the name of this bridge. Okay, so leaving the Bickerseiland behind in just a moment, I just want to point out this building to you here. It was a great big warehouse, and it was actually called Bremen. It was named after Bremen. And navigate the cars. It was built in the 1770s, and above the door it had, if you have it here, and there's actually some detail here, you can see two stockfish, which are like salted fish, and it says the two stockfish up there as well in sort of cast iron lettering. I cannot imagine anything worse than having to eat salted cod, but never mind. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Hello, Lynn. And then in the late 1880s, it was bought and expanded, and they built this building next door, which is really, really beautiful. That was built as pounding rooms. So it was actually a factory, and they expanded from stockfish to also include anchovies and cod liver oil. Can you imagine how this area must have stank with people, salted fish and cod liver oil all in one place? Terrible, terrible, terrible. Anyway, here's a last look at the Brewer's Canal and the plant's getting a bit of water and no boats going underneath this tank. Yeah, I just can't even imagine, you know, terrible stuff. So, I mean, it's funny because you think Amsterdam is so beautiful now, and of course it was beautiful then, but my goodness, it smelled. I mean, famously, the canals didn't drain very well, and people used to chuck their sewage in the canals. And Amsterdam was referred to in those days, in the 16 and 1700s, certainly, maybe even later, as a beautiful maiden with bad breath. And, yeah, I don't think the cod liver oil factory would have helped much. Okie dokie. So this, yikes, is still the Prinsen's Canal, I think. No, it's the Korte Prinsengracht. I'm talking rubbish. Okay, so we've left the Prinsen's Canal, and now we're on the short Prinsen's Canal. Nothing to do with the vertically challenged. It's just a shorter section of the canal. And here are some locks. We've actually seen these before. Oh, there's a really pretty boat about to come through, so let's just catch that. It's a little salon boat. Oh, look at the cute little thing. Sweet. Okay. So here we are. And these locks are called the unicorn locks. And that's nothing to do with pride. It's been called the unicorn locks forever, almost. I mean, kind of since they've been here. Although we do have more pride flags. And check out the nice tunnel here. So this tunnel's obviously open. I mean, because they're not used as locks anymore. They don't need to close off the water here anymore. And it always amuses me that these cannons face inwards into the city. You would have kind of thought that maybe cannons are meant to face out of the city, but anyway. Okay, these locks were put in. Basically, the canal belt, so we're on the last canal here of the canal belt, and the traffic in the lock slightly closer on the canal called Single was so heavy, there were just so many boats that needed to get through. So they knew they needed to put in some new locks. And they put in these ones, and actually initially they were called the Prince's Locks, named obviously after the Prince's Canal. And the reason they became known as the unicorn locks is because no matter what you do, no matter what you name stuff, locals will find their own names for things. And there was a brewery nearby that had a unicorn and on the top of the building. And that's why it very, very quickly became known as the unicorn locks. And actually that unicorn was salvaged and in the 1800s put onto the front of this building that replaced the brewery, and here it is. It's not very, very nice and distinct, but you'll just have to take my word for it. There's the unicorn up there. And what I thought I would do, because I haven't done for ages, is I haven't actually put out a slicey. So hello, slicey. And many of you know what these slices are. This will, not this one obviously, because I'm about to leave it out in public forever. but we'll have a quiz for us lassie later. So I thought this looked like, I saw it earlier, such a wonderful place to put one, because look how beautiful these boxes of flower boxes are. So let's try and stick one in there. There you go. So there, and hopefully that same guy will come and water the flower boxes here, and he'll see them, and it'll make him laugh. I like it. Okay, let's get on with this tour. Okay, still on the Korte Prinsengracht, and that's how you write it. Up there. Korte Prinsengracht. And there is this absolutely wonderful shop. I'm so sad it's closed now, because when I was scouting for this tour, I saw this shop. Oh wow, this is actually revolving. And it's silk flowers, but the most beautiful silk flowers. And yeah, here's his logo. You must look him up. This guy called Frank Groningen, and Flowers for Life. And I'm actually going to get some of his flowers, because I think the ones like this are like €7.50 each. But let's face it, once you've bought it, you have it for life. And it's a really cool shop. He kind of encourages people to go in and then to put the photographs on YouTube or Instagram or that type of thing. But very wonderful. Okay. Now, great big double warehouse here with what's called a trapezium gable, which is kind of flat on top and quite wide. And this was built, what is it built? It says 1656 on it there, you can read it yourself. And it has a gable stone on it. And this gable stone I thought was quite interesting, because there is a guy called Jacob van Lennep. And I've spoken about him before, and I showed you a statue to him on the Haarlemmer Square, Haarlemmer Plain. And that's to do with bringing a fresh water supply to Amsterdam in the 1800s, which was so good for public health. And he also was a writer and a lawyer and a historian, and he wrote about this gable stone. He wrote a book about gable stones, published in 1868. And with this one, he said when he first researched it, there was a woman in the chariot on the left being charioted around. And he said that this was an Assyrian queen. And it was taken or inspired by a kind of an amusement park they had on the Prince's Canal. And then obviously during his time, it was renovated, and the people made this Assyrian queen into a man. She got a beard. And he wrote very disparagingly about this. And way, way later, like in the late 1900s, 1990s somewhere, it was properly restored, and lots of layers of paint were taken off, and it was found that the figure was actually always a bearded gentleman. So Jacob van Lennep got that one wrong, apparently. There you go. So last little look at the Prince's Canal. It's going to be ages until we're here again. Because, oh, that is such a nice view. Look at that. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. What a nice selection of colours and gables, huh? Different shapes. Okay, so now we are going underneath the main kind of motorway that comes into town from the eastern direction. Not the main, sorry, a motorway that comes in, but we're certainly coming out of, yeah, why not a queen with a beard? Absolutely, but that didn't fly so much in the 1800s, I don't think, but certainly with Pride Week, I think we're almost definitely guaranteed to see lots of queens with beards. Okay. Yeah, here's the railway lines. As you can see, railway lines. Lots of tracks coming into Amsterdam, and this is a bicycle lane, and there's some kind of nice, very not dramatic or anything, street art, but kind of a bunch of eyes all the way along. I kind of like them. Kind of keeping an eye on people coming onto the islands. I do love bridges. Oh, look at this through here. So I've come through here pretty often on a boat. Lee comes through here on her boat at least twice a day, if not more. Something kind of nice about urban architecture like this, huh? And more eyes. Okay, so we're coming through into an area that is often considered a forgotten little corner of Amsterdam. And oh yeah, brutal urban architecture is great. Even brutalism. I find that now enough time has passed since brutalism in the 1970s that now I'm finding it attractive. They say that is about 50 years, eh? But, oh, that's a cool view. So what do we got here? There's the Adam Tower, they call it nowadays, which is the old Shell Tower. And then this is the Wester Dock over here. And a lot of the harbour architecture for a long time, they thought, hey, let's make it look like containers on a ship. I love this one up here. This entire roof of that is a roof garden. Somebody told me once that the architect of the whole area had that as his pad, which sounds very sensible. But we're coming through into what are known as the Western Islands. And there are so many little gardens on the Western Islands. It's amazing. And we're not going to see too many today, just this little one. It says Kindertuin, which means children's garden, but it's not. I mean, I wouldn't go in with a camera. People don't like their children being broadcast on YouTube. It's much more like an allotment garden. So I don't know why, maybe it's just historically called children's garden. So lots of little plots here. Check out the tomatoes. Obviously local people growing some veg and stuff. Love it. Right, now I'm going to lead you up the garden path. I hope I can get out this way. Can I get out this way? It's getting narrower and narrower. Yep, I think I can. No, I can't. That leads to the compost. Okay, we'll get another look at it. Snuggled in the armpit of the railway lines. How's about that? I lead myself up the garden path here. Okay, here we go. Pretty, yeah? My garden is actually doing exceptionally well this year. It's looking good. Okay. Now back onto the quayside. Where's the story going? So the Western Islands. In the 1600s, in the early 1600s, this part of Amsterdam was still mainly water, and what wasn't water was swampy. you know, with some reed beds and that type of thing. It was outside of the city walls, and it was a pretty, it's an area that will be home to sort of outlaws and undesirables, basically. You know, people who couldn't show their face in the city for whatever reason would be kind of holed up out here and maybe sneak into town every now and then. And but the harbour was silting up. So what they did is they thought, okay, what are we going to do with all this silt? We could package it into islands. Let's build some walls, kind of more or less like that, and then make these blocks and package the silt into those blocks, and then have nice open bits of water in between. So that is what happened, and that's how they created these islands. Separating out the sludge into land and water. Quite biblical, really. And they were made them, and this is where they were intending to have things like the smelly industries. So things like tar, the tanneries, sugar refineries. And that's pretty much what happened. The islands were called really imaginative names. Front, Middle and Back Island. Oh, the Dutch are just so snappy with these things, really. And yeah, so we're on what was built as Front Island. Before I go too much further though, I have to show you a sculpture. Now I could do this as a quiz question, guess what it is, but that would be mean. I must say, when I saw it, I was thinking a grand piano, maybe? And then I was just, well, you know, it's so difficult interpreting public sculptures, you know, and they can be so obscure sometimes. This one actually needs a bit of a polish. So I don't know if you're getting anything here. I mean, I was getting maybe grand piano. Yeah, Nancy, it is strange. The locals apparently refer to it as the whale, which is, I think, a pretty good thing to refer to it as. But it's actually meant to be, and it's best viewed from this angle, a fallen tree. Okay. I bet none of you got that. The fallen tree. I mean, all right then. Fair enough. Apparently the artists weren't too pleased because after the fact, the city council came and put these lights in here without asking them. Okay, which does seem a little rude, really. Now, when these islands were built, everything we're looking at now wasn't here. Yeah, Terry, I don't really get it either. But like the narrow part's meant to be the trunk, the bigger part is meant to be sort of the leaves, and definitely the whale works better. So yeah, when these islands were built, this was just looking straight out over very big, expansive water. And then the Western Dock Dyke was built in the 1830s. And then much later, this development happened. You know, like, I struggle to remember when, but I think it was around 2000s. Yeah, I think it's actually worked quite well. So very blocky buildings, which if you took any of those individually, I don't think they'd be very attractive, but a lot of glass, letting in a lot of light, and then a line of trees, and then making moorings for old boats. And that just gives enough variety to the neighborhood, you know, so that it's not, you know what I mean? It has a bit of interest. I think it really works, actually. Works quite well. And then with this island here, oh man, the crimes of the 90s. Look at this housing. Thankfully, the whole island's not like this. Otherwise, I seriously wouldn't have brought you here. But this is the kind of typical, kind of shoebox housing from that period. Often public housing. And I mean, the location's great, the views are lovely, but it's just really, really pretty damn awful to look at. Thankfully, they don't do it like this anymore. They learned the they learned their lessons, absolutely. So, the island was bought, actually. So this island was built, the front and the middle and the back islands were built. And then nothing was happening with them. And then in 1631, there was this guy, the crimes of the 90s architecturally, sure. And then the crimes of the 80s with fashion. I was a teenager in the 80s, and you know how the 80s came back? I think the people who did it the first time never, ever, ever did it again. Like, it was just too cringe-making. Anyway, in 1631, this guy called Jan Bicker actually bought the entire island. He was mayor of Amsterdam, but there were loads of mayors. They always had 4 at a time. And he was a shipbuilder, a merchant. The Bicker family is an old Dutch patrician family, right way back. They can trace their roots back to the 1380s, 1380s. Maybe those 80s are okay. And they're still going. The family still exists. They are members of the Dutch nobility. And what he did is he bought this island, and it was just land. And he built for himself a large stately home, as you would, and about 3 floors and a really big tower. And the idea was that he could look out over this huge expanse of water, bearing in mind that these things weren't there, and see when his ships were coming back full of profit. And also it was kind of handy that the ships coming back could use that tower as a landmark, so they knew where they had to go. He built lots of residences here for his workers as well. And he lived as lord of the island, and his motto was boss in your own yard, which he most certainly was. And what he had above the entrance of his great big fancy house was a sculpture, rather. Now here is a sculpture. The sculpture that he had looked exactly like this, by the way. And this was above the doorway, the entrance to his house. Actually, I'm just going to go back a little bit and zoom in, because then you'll get a better perspective. Whoopsie. Let me zoom. Okay. So this was above the entrance. And it's meant to be the Roman god Mars. This was the god of war and fertility. Now, his house was actually demolished in about 1700, but the giant was preserved and kept on the islands. And then in 1812, there's an important company here called Jonker and Sons, and they owned it, and they put it in the facade of their factory, and it was known, not surprisingly, as the Giant of Bickerseiland. And then in 1950, there was a big storm, and bear in mind, this thing had been knocking around now for 300 years, standing outside in the cold and the wet and the rain and the sleet. And it was cracked severely in a storm, and it was really kind of worn out anyways. So then Mr. Jonker had a replica made. And then in 1972, the company was shut down. And he took it off, he retired, and he really loved his giants, so he took it to Alicante in Spain, as you do, where he retired. And then later, his grandson inherited all his possessions, and the grandson just happened to live in Canada. So the giant went to Canada. So now Canadian giant. And the local residents here on the island managed to track it down and said to the grandson that, we would really love it if if the giant of Bickerseiland could come back to Bickerseiland. And he went, yeah, sure, fine, not a problem. And back it came. And the then mayor, the late mayor, Eberhard van der Laan, he unveiled it in 2011. Oops, there we go. So there you go. And now here's the giant back on his home turf and facing inwards towards the island and basically just looking out for all its sleeping residents. And then more of the 1990s abomination on the left here. So anyway, oh, thank you, Leslie. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Heading into the island. So this was a very, very industrial area in those years. So anyway, we're coming up to a building because these were extremely industrial islands and some very, very big and important industries here. So besides the Bickers, there was the Yonkers. There was a lot of a sugar factory. There was a huge sugar factory, which was about 6 stories high. And that was burnt down. It lasted for about 80 years, not about 50 years, sorry, in the mid-1800s. And it provided employment for about 400 people. And there were tar factories, of course. There was the metal works, which was Jonker and Son, and that was from 1806. And they made things like steam boilers and anchors and chains, bridge parts, and very famously made the railings for the balcony on the palace. So the balcony on the palace in Dam Square, when Napoleon's brother was made King of the Netherlands, he put a balcony on so he could address his adoring Dutch subjects. And that balcony was very famously made by Jonker and Sons. And check this one out here. This little gable stone, also from the mid-1600s, and it was a Dutch frigate. So it was a ship, the type of ship that would have been made here on the island, because there were about 10 different shipbuilding wharfs made by Jan Bicker and introduced or built by him or allowed by him, and I think more later as well. So this frigate had 24 guns and was both a merchant ship and a naval ship. And here is the entrance to one of the buildings of one of the metalworking factories. So the IJzerstaven means the iron rods. Okay, so you're getting a shimmering screen. Sorry about that. So I want to show you this amazing Art Nouveau detail here. It's so pretty. Check it out. Okay, sorry it's gone a bit blurry. So far everything has been great on YouTube, so much so that I haven't needed to try and get any other, sort of, you know how some of the people, guides, ex-Hager guide streaming, are using different types of, how do you say, kind of interface packages, which I found I haven't actually needed to use. So I'll have a look at this later and see how it's working. But basically that was an introduction to it. I just wanted to show you. And then we'll see some of the really pretty parts of it next week, hoping not to bump into that woman again. I know that there is a local guy here who has been doing tours of the area. He lives here even, and then the locals have been yelling at him and stuff because they don't want tourists coming to their islands. So anyway, but just to show you where we are again, here's the railway line, that kind of cut this place off from the city in the 1880s and made it into just a kind of a slightly forgotten little part of the world. So there we go. Yeah, Sandy, you know, I used Streamlabs once and it was an absolute disaster. Maybe I'll look into it again and I'll try. So we'll see, because I would like to have some kind of system where I can share photos and stuff like that, because what I've been doing a little bit is, you know, just holding up a tablet, and of course that never works. It's dreadful. Yeah, quite, Susan, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you for joining. Hey, we have to do the quiz. And besides that, could you like the video? Okay, and that sort of stuff, which I always forget. Let's do the quiz question. I haven't actually prepared one, but earlier in the tour, what I did is I showed you some locks. The locks were named after an animal. What is the animal? Okay, for a slicey. What animal were the locks named after? Anyone? So I showed you some locks. Yay! Okay, Cheryl. Cheryl, you are the proud winner of, I hope proud winner anyway, of a slicey. So if you can send me either through Facebook, DM me, or email me, my email address is in the description of this tour. If you could send me an address, I will post you off a slicey. And oh, by the way, also in the description there's a buy me a coffee link if you feel like doing that. Always great. Cool. Great. Okay. Well, super. Have a good week, everybody, and I hope to see you next week. Bye.